Part 72. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 740. Xiang Su Tong stood there. This was a woman's name, like a maiden name. Could it be that this woman named Xiang was his mother? But why was this memory of mine erased by some force? Is it a player? Stranger. The inability to get answers to these questions inevitably left a shadow on Su Tong's heart. It seemed that he was indeed going back after solving Luo Tianda. It's just that this time it's not just to catch his good brother to join the team, he also wants to have an explanation of his life experience. At this time, Su Tong turned around and saw that Gu Zibai's face was getting more and more ugly. He was like a drowning person. He was covering his head with both hands and shaking from side to side. The more he struggled, the painful memories kept coming. As they kept coming out, these memories were entangled with each other, and they were about to turn into a big hand and pull him completely into the abyss. Seeing this, Su Tong frowned and quickly came to Gu Zibai's side. He held Gu Zibai's neck with one hand, stretched his round arm with the other hand, and slapped the guy hard on the face with 2 slaps. Idiot, no matter what you were like before, you are now so powerful that you are like a Superman, wake up. 2 vicious slaps made GameElements' distracted eyes gradually begin to focus. When he heard Su Tong's words, he suddenly woke up in his heart, his face changed, and an uncontrollable anger surged from his chest to the top of his head. He opened his hands and let out a deafening roar. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly the water surface exploded, and the vigorous martial arts will was like an indestructible sharp blade, instantly shattering all the surrounding memories. However, after Gu Zibai got a chance to breathe, he surfaced uncontrollably, as if he was pushed out by some strange force. On the contrary, there is nothing strange about him. At this time, a bright blue light began to appear under the water. Su Tong lowered his head and saw a huge mirror emerging from the bottom of the water. As the mirror slowly stood up, a figure exactly like Su Tong was reflected in the mirror, but the figure in front of him was not his own shadow, because he actually sat down straight in front of her, with both hands sitting cross-legged, holding his chin with one hand. He looked Su Tong up and down. You passed the test, but you don't seem to be a descendant of Longhu Mountain. I can't see the unique mark of Longhu Mountain on you. Su Tong in the mirror spoke first, his voice as aged as an 80-year-old man. Su Tong took out the parchment scroll given to him by Taoist Lingxiu from the props book and opened it to reveal the mark on the back. I see. Since you are holding a token, I will use it for your convenience. I saw the person in the mirror stretched out his palm and grabbed his heart with force, making a click sound, and then after groping inside for a while, he took out a living heart from his heart. Then he handed the heart to Su Tong. This thing is the opportunity for you to become enlightened. If this heart can beat any time, that will be the day you become enlightened. Su Tong stretched out his hand and took the heart in his hand. The heart fell into his hand and quickly turned into an emerald-like stone. He tried to throw it into the prop book to see clearly. As a result, the prop booklet gave 3 question marks, and specifically marked abnormal items, unable to be identified. Seeing this, the corner of Su Tong's mouth twitched, and he wanted to ask for more information, but the figure in the mirror gradually shattered until it disappeared, leaving only one sentence: the secret must not be leaked. Bah, you did it? Su Tong put his heart away, turned around and swam out of the pool with a curse. Only when they climbed up to the pool did they see Gu Zibai sitting on the stone with a depressed face, looking down and sighing, looking very uncomfortable. After all, everyone has some very uncomfortable memories in childhood. People will subconsciously throw these memories into the trash can and selectively forget them. Just thinking about it occasionally, even after many years, still makes me gnash my teeth with hatred. Gu Zibai's memory fragments mostly involve domestic violence. It can be seen that this fair and clean young man's childhood was worse than having a happy life in the hospital. Su Tong never asked about other people's family affairs, and he had no interest in being a trashcan for other people's emotions. He only said, "Don't be stupid, come over and help." Gao Zhou sent the container. It turned out that just when they dived into the pool, Gao Zhou actually found many containers and threw them into the team warehouse. The 6 large water tanks looked familiar to Su Tong. At first glance, they were the containers used by the Mei family to store wine. One mouthful was enough for half a person to be tall and 1 meter wide. After sniffing carefully, I felt that the aroma of wine was overflowing inside. It was obvious that there was wine stored in it before. I don't know if Gao Zhou, this fool, ruined the 6 large vats of wine and vacated the empty vats so quickly, but Su Tong didn't care so much, so he raised a water vat and threw it into the water. Gillialud bubbles the size of a wash basin appeared on the surface of the water, and soon the tank was filled to the brim. Then with a strong lift, the tank was lifted out, the lid was closed, and it was thrown into the team warehouse. Seeing Su Tong busy at work, Gu Zibai was too embarrassed to sit there and sulk anymore, so he rushed over to fill the bottle with water. "Oh, my dearest infinite heavenly Lord, are these 2 really descendants of Longhu Mountain? Why do I feel like these are bandits invited by someone?" This scene made the green bird on the side stunned. I have seen shameless people, but I have never seen such shameless people. I only secretly drank a few sips, and I was already careful, for fear of being discovered. But compared with the 2 people in front of him, he is simply a symbol of kindness and simplicity. How long will it take to drink this tank of water? Are they planning to go back and open a water store? Huh? Is there any problem? Su Tong noticed the strange look from the blue bird behind him and couldn't help but look back sideways. King Niao shook his head and quickly said no. After all, people come in with a warrant just to get a chance. Although this kind of thing makes people uncomfortable, it is still within the rules, and it is hard for anyone to say anything. But in the end, I couldn't help but complain. No wonder the god of wealth often says that people who want to get rich are cruel. I don't know whether the bluebird's words were a compliment or a criticism. Fortunately, Su Tong didn't hear it, otherwise he might have tried to trick the bird away. After the 2 of them finished their work, Su Tong looked around and saw that there was a waterfall around him and there seemed to be nothing else. After hesitating for a moment, he still took out the Chunyang sword as a shovel, which made King Niao once again see what scraping is. 3 feet of ground. The originally good yard was dug up by Su Tongsheng and was horribly damaged. Even the rocks beside the lake were not spared, and everything that could be loaded was packed into the team warehouse. Su Tong has calculated that there are a total of 28 slots in the team warehouse. If there are not enough, you can spend script points and badges to purchase them. However, it is not only expensive, but 1 slot requires at least 1 gold level badge to redeem. The 28 slots are enough for him to hold a lot of things, and then give them to Gao Zhou and let him slowly move them between the virtual and the real. In this way, even if locusts pass through the border, you can move things home without any vegetation, and you won't be afraid that they won't be able to fit in them. If it weren't for the fact that this hall seemed to be protected by some kind of power, Su Tong might have even dismantled the hall and moved it away. Let's go. After making sure that there was nothing else that could be taken away, Su Tong no longer lingered, and pulled Gu Zibai onto the bluebird to escape. Otherwise, when those golden armored god generals come back and see how this place has been transformed by them, they might want to settle accounts with them. King Niao knew this better than Su Tong, so as soon as he heard the 2 of them saying to leave, he immediately flapped his wings and quickly flew out of Yugzi Terrace. After leaving the Yugzi Terrace, Su Tong said without the need for King Niao to speak, "Go to the Jade Summit of the Qianhuang Emperor." "Okay, sit tight, you two." King Niao was not surprised by this choice. The jade peak of the Dome Emperor is located at the top of the 22nd heaven. There are countless treasures along the way, making it the best route. The most important thing is that the jade summit of the Dome Emperor is the only way to leave the Tianmen of the immortal world, so unless Su Tong requests it, others will also take this route on the advice of the heavenly beasts. What? The heavenly gate is on top of the jade dome of the Dome Emperor. After King Niao introduced this route to Su Tong in detail, Su Tong was a little surprised and had a bad premonition. Boss, don't worry, when the time comes for us to join forces, those players may not be our opponents. Gu Zibai thought that Su Tong was worried that he would be chased and intercepted by other players, so he hurriedly patted his chest to cheer Su Tong up. On the one hand, he wanted to show Su Tong his responsibility as a qualified teammate, and on the other hand, he also wanted to recover the loss he had just lost. Face. Su Tong just smiled bitterly when he heard this. How could he be worried about this? He just had a very uncomfortable feeling in his heart. The time I spent with Zhang Haisheng was very short. But since he fell into the hands of Gu Peiyuan, and even though he had the chance to escape, he still chose to endure all kinds of difficulties from Gu Peiyuan, even accepted the challenge, and was thrown into the brothel without much resistance. It can be seen that this guy is extremely not a mindless fool. So is he really just trying to cause some trouble for himself by recruiting so many players to participate in Luo Tianda dipping this time? Su Tong has always been skeptical about this. But there was no need for him to tell Gu Zibai this, otherwise it would dampen Lao Bai Xianqi's fighting spirit. At the moment, we can only take one step at a time and be careful to avoid being used as a weapon by Zhang Haisheng. While the two were talking, King Niao suddenly slowed down. There seems to be someone fighting in front, should we go around? Su Tong didn't want to stay, but after King Niao finished speaking, Su Tong suddenly saw a black shadow quietly appearing in the distance and then disappearing quickly. Although the process was very short, he would never admit the wrong person, and he was suddenly surprised. Why is he here too? Who? Gu Zibai looked at Su Tong, wondering who Su Tong was talking about. Ha ha ha, it's really hard to find anywhere without trying to find a place. It takes no effort to get here. Let's follow and have a look. Su Tong gave it a try and didn't say who the person he saw was. He just let the blue bird enter the village quietly, and no one wanted to shoot. Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 741. When Su Tong and Gu Zibai quietly landed on the crown of a huge tree in a blue bird, they were also shocked by the scene in front of them. I saw that in front of me was a desert paved with golden sand. An ancient altar stood in the middle of the desert. Runes appeared around the altar, like phoenix feathers, which were dazzling and breathtaking. On the altar, there is a bottle, which is full of crystal clear liquid. I don't know what it is, but I just feel that it is so fragrant that I can smell it from a distance. This is the 22 heavens, the golden sands and the sea of bones. We have never seen this altar before, but it actually popped up today. King Niao is indeed a professional guide and driver. He told Su Tong and Gu Zibai where this place was without waiting for them to ask. Rumor has it that there is a great god here. After throwing a rib here, the rib turned into an altar and gave birth to countless golden sands. However, this place is also quite dangerous. If you accidentally fall into the golden sands, you will be swallowed by the golden sands quickly. The bottle on the altar contains the bone marrow treasure liquid of the great god. It is said that those who drink it can refine and sublimate the soul and understand the treasures of heaven and earth. No wonder these people can't wait to fight. Hearing this, Gu Zibai suddenly realized, staring at the bottle, his eyes became hot. At this moment, there were already people fighting under the altar to get on the altar. This time Zhang Haisheng invited players from all over the world, and he indeed invited many masters. Among them was a middle-aged man. His soul kept changing, and he could make wind, fire, thunder, and lightning in his palm at one go. He could fight 3 people alone without falling behind. Not only is it not falling behind, it is even on the verge of being crushed. Seeing that the 3 of them were about to be defeated, a black shadow suddenly appeared quietly next to the altar. He reached out and grabbed the vase on the altar directly in his hand. The next moment, the person disappeared without a trace. Ah! The sudden change made everyone look stunned for a second, and they stopped fighting for an instant. It seemed that it took a while to react. Space system. Space prop cards can easily achieve the ability to travel through space. However, this kind of prop card, like Su Tong's Traveler's Mark, is an extremely rare prop card. Any one of them is enough to cause great chaos. Hurry up and chase, this guy must not have gone far. Everyone was no longer calm now. They screamed and jumped on the celestial beasts around them, looking for each other's traces everywhere. Although the space item card is very strong, the cooling time must be very long, and the distance must not be too far, so this person must still be nearby. In the blink of an eye, the bustling altar suddenly became deserted. Let's. Seeing that everyone was gone, Gu Zibai looked at Su Tong. Wait. Su Tong made a silent gesture, indicating that Gu Zibai should continue to watch. After about 2 or 3 minutes, a crack quietly appeared around the altar, followed by a figure awkwardly emerging from the crack. Hey, a bunch of idiots. Chang Liuju looked at the treasure vase in his hand, and while he was ecstatic, sarcasm appeared on his face. These people are too easy to be fooled, so let them look around while you recover here first. After all, this is the heaven, and your space skills are not only extremely consumed here, but also have many limitations. The most troublesome thing was the mental drain, which was a bit too much for him. However, just when Chang Liuju was complacent, his face suddenly darkened. It seems that not all of them are idiots. As he raised his head, he saw a man jumping out of the bushes and raising his palm. Take out the things. Chang Liuju looked the visitor up and down, then placed the vase in his hand on the altar again. The things are here, come up and get them yourself if you have the guts. Gu Zibai's eyes were clear, and when he met Chang Liuju's eyes, there was already a strong fighting spirit in his eyes. In an instant, the 2 of them took action at the same time. Chang Wuhan's killing move is his first move. His hands are almost transparent and glow with purple light. He blasts out a domineering purple light that can tear apart all defenses. In contrast, Gu Zibai did not use the ability of the prop card, and faced Chang Liuju generously. With the blessing of martial arts thoughts on the soul, even ordinary boxing skills were not inferior to the power of the prop card skills. Just the first encounter caused a thunderous explosion. Death storm. Kill kill kill. Chang Wuhan's eyes gradually turned red, and his body seemed to be burning with a purple flame. His sharp claws seemed to tear the void in front of him, and countless sharp blades that were difficult to distinguish with the naked eye burst out at his fingertips, forming a terrifying killing storm. The sky and the earth are falling. Feeling the pressure, Gu Zibai did not dare to hold back anymore. He stepped on the ground with his feet, and a pure white aura rose up all over his body. With the blessing of martial arts, man could conquer the sky. With one punch, he had an aura like a wild python. It shattered countless sharp blades with a bang. Dragon and tiger are in full swing. GameElements' white fist transformed into the force of a dragon and a tiger, and with a flurry of punches, he went straight towards Chang Liuju and crushed him down. Chang Liuju's face instantly turned ugly. I saw him waving his hands constantly, releasing ice blades, water swords, fire shields, earth hammers, and all kinds of weird props and skills in his hands. At the same time, various auras are constantly superimposed on the body. However, Gu Zibai was just crushing him all the way. His martial arts will was like a tank, and his fists would crush him before any skills came close. Su Tong watched intently from a distance, and couldn't help but be secretly surprised. This guy's strength is not slow to improve. Fortunately, he threw himself into the trap, otherwise it will be difficult to suppress him next time we meet him. Chang Wuhan obviously followed the path of rapid assassination. Coupled with his ability to travel through space, if ordinary people were inadvertently hit by him, it would be really difficult to sleep and eat. It's just that he was unlucky and met Gu Zibai, a martial arts idiot. Although he didn't have as many props as Chang Wugu, he was able to win because he was upright, his punches were like hammers, and his whole body was like an oven. The two were like needles facing each other, restraining each other. If Chang Wuhan was hiding in the dark and took the lead in a sneak attack, Gu Zibai might have been seriously injured at this moment. But in an above-board environment, Chang Wuhan was obviously beginning to struggle. There was such a big commotion here, and the people who had not gone far immediately turned back. The stuff is still there. When they saw the vase on the altar, everyone's eyes suddenly shone, but many of them ran straight towards Chang Wuhan. Compared with a bottle of precious liquid, they cared more about the space item card in Chang Wuhan's hand. As long as his soul is captured and his body is found, there are many ways to take the prop card as his own. Tough luck. Seeing someone running towards him to kill him, Chang Wuja, who was already passive, made a decisive decision to retreat. Swish swish swish. But at this moment, 4 war flags fell from the sky and fell all around, completely trapping Chang Wuzi and Gu Zibai. Trapped Beast Flag. Active Skill 1, Battle. With himself as the center, he summons 4 flags to seal off a void. Once he enters this area, he cannot use props, skills, or actively escape. Duration, 2 hours. Cooling time, 3 hours. Note, the more people enter the battle, the shorter the duration of the battle. If you want to leave now, it's too late. The middle-aged man who was 1 against 3 came out just now. He used this skill, and the 4 flags just wrapped the altar. In other words, it is not easy for anyone who dares to enter the altar area to get out now. Having seen the strength of these people, the others were reluctant to step forward when they saw this. They did not want to be inexplicably involved in this fight again, and chose to retreat and wait and see what would happen. Brother, the treasure belongs to you, and this person belongs to me. How about joining forces? The middle-aged man looked at Gu Zibai and said in a deep voice. Gu Zibai raised his eyebrows slightly and nodded thoughtfully, this is a good idea, a good deal. Chang Wuhan curled his lips when he saw this, and just when he was about to speak, suddenly an invitation to join the team sounded. Silver Team, Kimin, invites you to join the team. 7 doors. After seeing the invitation message, Chang Wuju had never heard of such a team, and when he instinctively planned to refuse, a familiar laughter sounded from behind the crowd. It's so lively here, so what if I'm the only one here? Everyone turned around and saw Su Tong jumping down from the bushes. It's you. Everyone recognized Su Tong's appearance, and Zhang Haisheng had published all the information he could find about Su Tong. Seeing Su Tong, many people's eyes became strange. Some people are eager to give it a try, and even can't wait to do it. But some people simply turned away. Outside Tianmen, Su Tong neatly eliminated a player, which left a deep impression on many people. They came here to participate in Lushan Dajhan simply for the opportunity of these treasures in Tianmen, and had no interest at all in the hatred of Zhang Haisheng and Su Tong. So when they saw Su Tong, these people wisely quit and had no intention of participating at all. I saw Su Tong striding up to the altar, patting Chang Wuzu on the shoulder, and sighed, look, we are brothers in need, and we will finally come together. Pooh! Chang Wuhan scolded him for his bad luck. He originally wanted to find an opportunity to sneak in and attack this bastard, but he didn't expect that he was forced to join forces with him. In fact, Chang Wuji's lack of intelligence cannot be blamed. Who would have thought that in the heavenly realm, the spatial ability that he relied on for a living would be consumed so alarmingly, making him very passive at the moment. If he had known this earlier, he should not have come in, but stayed outside and took the opportunity to find this guy's body. It's just useless to regret. Chang Wuhan cursed and called him unlucky, but in his heart he reluctantly chose to join Su Tong's team. After all, fighting a tiger is a brother-in-law, and putting aside personal grudges, it is the last word to keep our guns aligned with the outside world. One space element, one time element, hey, 2 against 2, brothers, how about we fight one against the other? The middle-aged man's mouth corners were raised and he spoke boldly, as if he had strong confidence in himself. However, what everyone expected was that Gu Zibai put down his hands and walked to Su Tong and Chang Wenzhen without saying a word. Su Tong stared at the other party sideways, half smiling but not smiling. Are you going to challenge the three of us, or are we going to challenge you alone? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 742. The middle-aged man's eyes suddenly widened. Everyone standing outside the battle ring was even more shocked. This change happened so fast that it was a bit unexpected. How come these two people who were fighting life and death just now are on the same line as Su Tong? Chang Wuju looked at the deflated appearance of everyone with a proud look on his face, as if he had everything under control, but in his heart he cursed in the team channel. It turns out it's you, the sixth child, with the surname Su. You are really dog. Chang Wuhan was no fool. When he saw this, he immediately guessed that Su Tong must have instigated Gu Zibai to rush out to confront him, deliberately causing a stir and attracting the people who had dispersed around him back, and then this guy pretended to be. He turned pale and called himself to join the team. He actually boarded this dog thief's ship in a daze. I think I was a little touched just now, but now I am almost sick. Liu Bei is really crying for Jingzhou, and he is hurting others by crying. After cursing, Chang Wuju didn't forget to ask one more question. How did you know I would come back? I just saw you running all the way from a distance. Although I don't know why there were no spiritual beasts to help you, you definitely can't escape if you run like this. With your show-off temperament, I think there is a high chance that you will turn back. Su Tong knew Chang Wuju very well. The two were good brothers who grew up together. He knew best what kind of character this guy had. That's why I concluded that this guy was just fainting. Originally 2 versus 2, the middle-aged man thought he had a chance to win, but now it suddenly became 1 versus 3. The corner of the middle-aged man's mouth twitched, but he did not show any fear. The only thing that bothers me is that I seem to be wasting a lot of time here. Su Tong didn't plan to give him too much time to weigh the pros and cons. Seeing that this person didn't speak, Su Tong showed a sinister smile on his lips. If you don't speak, then it's a one-on-one challenge. Let's beat him together. As he spoke, Su Tong took the lead, summoned the Pure Yang sword, and struck out a huge vermilion fireball head-on. Pyrophilia. Suddenly the entire sky was dyed red with vermilion flames, and the terrifying power of burning even dissolved the golden sand around the altar. Originally, Su Tong's fiery sword technique had reached level LV4 after several actual battles in the script world. With the fire damage bonus from the Pure Yang sword and the Demon King's advent, the power of fire passion has reached a terrifying level 7. But this is not the end. After surviving the catastrophe, Su Tong was not only reborn, but also gained a special power. Great Wasteland Burning. Resilience increases by 200% in a blazing environment. Immune to fire damage below level 7. Fire skills add 2, and cooldown reduction is 40%. Additional skills, Vulcan. Vulcan. It consumes 800 script points. After activation, it transforms into the god of Vulcan. All flame skills are temporarily upgraded by 3 levels and the cooling time is waived. As a result, the level of fire addiction has been raised to the terrifying level 9, which is already the final level of the fire sword technique. Even those with a certain degree of fire immunity are not immune to such high-level fire damage. Ouch! The giant scarlet tiger raised its head from the sea of fire, its terrifying breath burned everything and made everyone feel suffocated. Such a terrifying sword made the middle-aged man's face sink. Zhang Haishan's information said that this person was good at fire attacks. At this moment, he couldn't help but want to curse, "You call this good? I'm afraid it won't be like this even if Hanggu comes." There was no time to think too much, the man's soul changed, and the soul appeared with a luster like glass. When he patted his forehead, he saw a black-purple copper bell floating above his head. Dynamic high-end prop cards are not only available to Su Tong. This middle-aged man dared to come alone, so he naturally had extraordinary strength. The bronze bell was suspended above the head, emitting a huge roar that resounded throughout the world like a lion's roar, shaking out endless terrifying sound waves, turning into thousands of terrifying waves. So he's Deathstroke. Seeing this bronze bell, some people were shocked and immediately understood the identity of this middle-aged man. It's him. No wonder he has such a loud tone, he turns out to be one of the 3 onlys. Everyone suddenly realized what he said. As the saying goes, where there are people, there are rivers and lakes, and certified players will also have their own intelligence circle. There was once a good person who collected all the intelligence and gave 2 paragraphs as a summary. 6 regiments, 2 gods, and 8 evils. 3 dus, 5 elders, and 4 directions. These 2 paragraphs almost wrap up all the top-notch combat power of certified players. The 3 unique ones are Deathstroke, Hanggu, and Yanzioki. These 3 are recognized masters among certified players. Because the 3 of them were all alone and had never joined a team, they were called the 3 solitaires. Boom! At this time, the bronze bell and the fire tiger collided together, making a huge roar. Immediately, the surrounding void burned out, and everything was submerged in the sea of vermilion fire. Even the golden sand under the feet turned into a viscous liquid. The onlookers stayed away, and their faces trembled slightly when they saw this. They are the same players, but the huge disparity in strength is a bit too high. When. Deafening bells rang out in the sea of fire. I saw the bronze bell on the head of the death knell, and the soul turned into a ferocious beast, with the head of a lion, the body of a dragon and 1 leg, and the tail of a leopard, forcing its way through the sea of fire and killing Su Tong. Roar. The sound of the bell is like the roar of a lion, and the soul and the bell wave combine to send out black ripples. Wherever the ripples pass, everything withers away, with the potential of swallowing up the sun and the moon. The big bell shook the sky, and the black bell waves filled the sky, almost engulfing Su Tong. Tiger roars. At this moment, a tiger roar arose, and Gu Zibai's hands were like hammers. His huge martial arts will made his soul emit brilliant golden light, breaking through the majestic bell, and fighting the death knell at close range. I saw the golden fist, like a sledgehammer, colliding head-on with the claws of the monster transformed by Deathstroke soul. Bang bang bang. Under the strong collision sound, the soul of the death knell trembled slightly, as if he couldn't stand Gu Zibai's head-on confrontation. After all, this was Gu Zibai's advantage. The will of martial arts was implemented in the soul, and even he couldn't bear it. Just when the death knell wanted to call the bronze bell and forcibly kill Gu Zibai, suddenly a burst of thunder was heard. Su Tong summoned the Xianyuan shield and collided with the bronze bell. Above the cyan shield light, 2 strange talisman brands flashed at the same time, and countless icicles exploded on the copper bell with lightning. Buzzing. The collision of electric light and ice exploded on the copper bell, which made Deathstroke scream in his heart, "Why is it still charged?" Seeing those icicles trying to swallow up the bronze bell, the death knell didn't dare to ring like this anymore. Immediately, his soul trembled, and he opened his mouth and spat out a ball of green light, which shook Guzibai away. Then he jumped up and landed on the bell, his single claw landed on the button of the bell, and he slapped his tail hard. Boom! The bronze bell made a loud noise, like a tsunami, so huge that it shattered all the ice and thunder and lightning, just when the death knell was about to strike a second time. Suddenly, a chill came from behind him, giving his soul an extremely ominous premonition. He immediately shrank his head, and a scarlet sickle cut across Deathstroke's scalp. This moment made Deathstroke's heart almost freeze. If he had reacted just a moment too late, he might have capsized today. Even so, a burning tingling sensation hit him from the top of his head and spread throughout his soul, making him groan secretly. Looking back, I found that Chang was hiding in the dark, waiting for opportunities to move. This guy missed a hit and quickly retreated, not giving Deathstroke a chance to counterattack. Deathstroke knew that if he continued to fight, his spirit would be exhausted, and he might die here. When he was about to close the battle flag, he struck the bronze bell with his tail, and after making a mighty bell that shook Su Tong away, he said coldly, "You are so powerful, but I admit defeat. If I were here in the flesh, the three of you would have been shocked to pieces by me." Deathstroke is not exaggerating. As a player, most of your strength is actually in your body. Without the protection of the physical body, fighting with the soul alone consumes not only the script points, but also the energy of the soul. Although Deathstroke is very strong, he does not want to fight Su Tong and the others here. Immediately, the soul hid itself in the bronze bell, quickly rushed out of the sea of fire, sat on a blue bird, and left quickly. As soon as the death knell left, other people also rode on the heavenly beasts and left the place quickly, not wanting to be entangled anymore. "Don't run." Before Guzibai could finish the fight, he got up and was about to give chase, but Su Tong stopped him. He took out a bottle of mineral water containing Shangqing Tianquan and threw one to Chang Wahen. Then he drank from the bottle and said, "The opponent is not a soft persimmon. If we keep fighting, we will win deficit." After a fierce fight just now, Su Tong had already realized that fighting in the heavens consumed too much of his soul energy. There are no physical supplies here, and the energy of the soul is consumed very quickly. If it is consumed too much and cannot be replenished in time, it is easy to lose consciousness. Chang Wahen drank a bottle of Shangqing Tianquan, and his whole body suddenly became excited. He felt that his soul was much more energetic, and he opened his hand to Su Tong. "More. It's available in the team warehouse. Get it yourself." Team warehouse. Chang Wogu then remembered that he had joined Su Tong's team. After calling out the prop book and looking at the team's attributes, he couldn't help but narrow his eyes. "You are so lucky, you are directly in a silver level team." As he said that, he took out a large bucket of Shangqing Tianquan from the team warehouse and drank it while holding it. At this time, Su Tong took out the bottle of treasure liquid on the altar. He wanted to try to put it into the prop book, but found that he could not collect it. This thing will evaporate quickly as soon as it leaves the altar. It can only be taken and used immediately. Seeing this, Chang Wuji explained to Su Tong. In this case, Su Tong was not polite, holding the bottle and drinking a third of it. As soon as the treasure liquid entered his mouth, Su Tong immediately felt his soul expand uncontrollably, and his body quickly grew in size, like a 5 to 6 meter giant. But then it began to gradually shrink under a strange force, until the body returned to its original size. His soul became more solid for a while, and its strength was increased several times more than before. As for what Kinkai said about comprehending the treasures of heaven and earth, Su Tong didn't feel this way. Then he handed the precious liquid to Guzibai, who was not polite. He drank it in a gulp, and after drinking half of it, his soul suddenly glowed with golden light. Stripes of golden texture appeared on Guzibai's arms. The peculiar texture was like a natural Taoist pattern. Gu Zibai seemed to have noticed something. After passing the treasure liquid in his hand to Chang Wugu, he hurriedly closed his eyes and began to meditate. For a moment, little golden rays of light began to flicker in Gu Zibai's soul, and gradually turned into a thumb-sized golden man behind him. The golden man kept practicing, as if he was performing a kind of boxing technique, until he mastered the boxing technique. After the beating, it was completely integrated with GameElements by Yuan Shen. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 743. The temperament of Gu Zibai, who merged with the little golden man, was instantly changed dramatically. His martial arts will was soaring to the sky, and his eyes glowed with a faint golden light. If you look carefully, 2 golden rings appeared in Gu Zibai's pupils. Martial arts golden eyes. This is the magic that Gu Zibai understood. What's more important is that he has mastered a set of boxing techniques. This set of boxing techniques seems simple, but it has endless changes. It can refine the will of martial arts, which is of great significance to Gu Zibai. Seeing that Gu Zibai had acquired the treasure technique, Chang Wuji could still lag behind others. He held the treasure bottle and drank heavily. The result was the same as Su Tong. The effect of the treasure liquid was limited, and it could only make his soul more condensed, and there is no one like Gu Zibai who understands boxing and magic. This makes me often curse unlucky without restraint. Su Tong speculated that this should have something to do with the way they practiced and had nothing to do with luck. Otherwise, the luck of the 2 of them would be a bit too unlucky. Let's go, let's keep going up. There should be many opportunities up there. Su Tong shouted, and the 2 of them jumped on Kinkei. In fact, the position on Kinkei's body is very comfortable for 2 people, but it will inevitably seem a bit crowded for 3 people. Gu Zibai couldn't help but ask Xiang Chang Wuju, "Don't you have a spiritual beast to help you?" When this issue was mentioned, Chang curled his lips and said, "Spiritual beasts? I think they are just a group of profiteers." It turned out that after Chang Wuhan broke into the Tianmen, he encountered spirit beasts 3 times, but without exception, these spirit beasts asked for tribute before they would help him, so that was all. But when he asked about the price, Chang Wuhan almost bit his tongue. People calculate money based on time. They don't want ordinary gold, silver, and jewelry. What they want are rare elixirs, treasures and the like. Chang Wuja tried to use a script to explain, but they didn't understand. So he could only take out a prop card. He took one look at it and counted it for 2 hours with a look of contempt on his face. When the time comes, more money must be added. Chang Wuhan felt very uncomfortable when he heard this, so after rejecting the first one, he met 2 more spiritual beasts, a turtle and a white crane. The prices offered by these 2 were even more difficult for Chang Wuhan to accept. The first spirit beast was given 2 hours anyway, but of the 2 following, one was only willing to give him half an hour, and the other was even more outrageous, only having time for a cup of tea. Such a gap made Chang Wuja so depressed that he vomited blood and ran all the way over in anger. Thanks to his good luck, he somehow fell into the wind duct and was blown over by a strong wind, otherwise he would have run away who knows how long. Hearing Chang Wuja's complaints, Su Tong and Gu Zibai looked at each other, and invariably squinted at the green bird at their feet. For some reason, Su Tong suddenly felt in his heart that he had given too much. Kinkei seemed to be aware of the gaze behind him, and hurriedly let out a sharp cry, quickly flapped its wings and soared into the sky, coughed twice at the same time, and explained. "The turtle you met should be a divine turtle. They can take you into the Tianhe River. As for the white crane, it may be a spirit beast kept in captivity by a certain great god and can take you back to the great god's cave." I don't know whether Kinkei's words are true or not. Chang Wuju was startled when he heard the words, and felt a little regretful for a moment. "What about you? Is there any special place you can take us to?" Su Tong sat on Kinkei's neck and joked after hearing this. This. Kinkei's eyes rolled around. At the moment of hesitation, he suddenly heard a crashing sound behind him. When he looked back, he saw that Kinkei's eyes were about to pop out. I saw a thick stack of brand new money in Su Tong's hand, at least as thick as a brick. Just holding it in his hand made a clattering sound that made the green bird's wings numb. Hey, forget it if you don't, I'm just asking. Su Tong played with the money in his hand, looking regretful. Have. The feathers on Kinkei's body fluttered, and his voice instantly rose 8 steps. Yes, we, the Kinkei clan, are descendants of Qingluan. We can enter the Xifeng mountain ridge, which is the former residence of the Qingluan clan. However, this outsiders want to get in. Having said this, Kinkei stared longingly at the money in Su Tong's hand. Haha, I understand the rules. Just add more money. Su Tong took out a piece of money and handed it to Kinkei. This is the deposit. I will pay you the full amount after the matter is completed. Looking at the Mingqiao handed over, Kinkei's eyes shone. Boss is very generous. Our Qingluan clan is the most hospitable. I guarantee you will have a good time, boss. Seeing this, Chang Chang casually twitched the corner of his mouth and cursed secretly. It's great to have money. This stupid bird doesn't know the goods. Didn't you see that he was holding Mingqian? Chang Wogu didn't know that the Mingqiao in Su Tong's hand was no ordinary thing. It contained a lot of incense and merit. Although they are spiritual beasts in the heaven, there are so many resources in the heaven. Gold, sand, silver, trees, gems, and jade are everywhere, and treasures of heaven and earth can be seen everywhere, so it is not strange at all to them. Only the merits of incense are the rarest treasures for these heavenly beasts. After all, the merits of incense are tributes that only the most powerful gods can enjoy. Kinkei accepted the money and didn't talk nonsense. He knew that Su Tong and the others had limited time in heaven, so he flapped his wings and headed straight to the east. The scenery along the way was dreamlike, and it was an eye-opener for Su Tong and the others. After receiving the money, the green bird not only flew hard, but also stopped in an orchard for a while and let Su Tong and the others pick some fruits. This fruit has no name, but it tastes refreshing and crispy. After eating it, the 3 of them received a reminder from the prop book, and each of them had an additional 15 years of life. This is quite an unexpected gain. Unfortunately, the orchard seemed to be protected by some kind of formation. Su Tong wanted to pick more, but was bounced back by a force. Otherwise, he would have to knock back the 2 fruit trees no matter what. 3 bosses, ahead is Xifeng Mountain. After hearing the words, the 3 people raised their heads and looked around, and found that the Xifeng mountain ridge mentioned by Kinkei was completely different from what they had imagined. A huge tree reaching the sky, like Atlas in the myth, connected a huge round crow. The nest is held high in the sky. The outside is shaped like a black nest, but I don't know what kind of material it is made of. Looking from a distance, the black nest is covered with a purple glow. From time to time, many green birds flew in and out of the crow's nest, occasionally casting curious glances at Su Tong and the 3 of them. Stop. Before approaching the entrance of the crow's nest, a green bird with white feathers blocked the way. After glancing up and down at Su Tong and the others, he stared sharply at the green bird under the seats of Su Tong and the others and asked, "This is Xifeng Mountain, why did you bring them here?" "Elder, these 3 people are all distinguished guests. I specially invited them to be my guests." Kinkei hurriedly explained, secretly sighing that it was terrible. The elder Baiyu around him was the most selfless and uncompromising person. Why was it such an unlucky thing to meet him today? Dignified guest. Elder Baiyu couldn't help but sneered when he heard this. It's just a mortal who broke into the Tianmen, and he dared to call himself a distinguished guest. The old bird's words were full of disdain. In their opinion, it was a great luck for these mortals who broke into the Tianmen to get this opportunity. As for the distinguished guests, they were far from being able to afford it. It's no wonder that he is so proud. As a descendant of Qingluan and a divine bird in the heavens, he should be proud of it. Not to mention mortals, it is not easy for even some low-level immortals to enter Xifeng Mountain. As soon as Elder Baiyu finished speaking, the expressions of Gu Zibai and Chang Wogu instantly darkened. Upon seeing this, King K wanted to explain, but didn't want to. At this time, Su Tong, who was sitting on its back, suddenly stood up and jumped in front of the elder in front of him. Huh! Elder Baiyu was startled and was about to scold Su Tong and step back, when Su Tong suddenly slapped the old bird in the face. The sound of crisp slaps echoed in the air, and in an instant, the green birds flying around stopped involuntarily. No way! King K was even more shocked. Elder Baiyu had a bad temper. You being slapped in the mouth by a mortal, although it doesn't hurt or itch, but this is simply. Huh? What is this? When he looked at the piece of money stuck on his face, the eyes of this old man who was over several hundred years old couldn't help but widen. Looking back, I saw Su Tong standing on King K's back, with two shining golden notes in his hands. The sun shone on them, and there was a smell of incense on the edge of the notes. But after a moment, old King K came back to his senses and glared at Su Tong. You are so outrageous, I am. Snapped. Before he finished speaking, Su Tong slapped Ming Chao with another slap. Seeing the money slipping from his face, old King K hurriedly opened his mouth to pick it up. Seeing the golden mark on it, Elder Baiyu's expression softened instantly. Although your excellency is very sincere, this is Fairy Qingluan, his former residence. Snapped. This time it wasn't a slap, but two green notes, slapped on the old green bird's peck. Seeing the bird peck at the shining money, Elder Baiyu's eyes almost turned into cross eyes, and he changed his voice, but the three distinguished guests have come from afar. Although I am in the way of the rules, I can't be lenient. This time Su Tong casually took out two more notes and placed them on the old green bird's long peck. I'm just confused. It's really rude and disrespectful to welcome three distinguished guests from afar. Seeing the changing attitude of their elders, the other green birds around them were almost dumbfounded. Is this still the Elder Baiyu they know? Su Tong did not speak, but continued to place the two golden notes on the bird's peck of Elder Baiyu. Feeling the weight of the note on the bird's peck, the grumpy Elder Baiyu couldn't help but swallow his mouth. No, no more. When Su Tong heard this, he not only did not stop, but continued to take out two pieces of money. Now the feathers on Elder Baiyu's body started to tremble. You are a distinguished guest, please let me personally escort you in. Two more shiny golden coins landed on the bird's peck. Su Tong's sleeve seemed to have a steady stream of money. With a flick of his hand, two money fell down. This is not a distinguished guest. He is simply the god of wealth. Elder Baiyu looked at the bird that had fallen on him and pecked the money. He was so excited that he almost flew into the sky. He wished he could sing a song for Su Tong and the others right now. Looking at the increasingly excited Elder Baiyu, Su Tong gradually smiled. He suddenly stretched out his hand and picked up the Ming Chao that the bird had pecked on. Sorry, I'm not going. Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 744. Elder Baiyu's face was still filled with a smile, and he was almost going crazy with joy. There were so many incense merits. As a result, before the sweet dream could linger in his brain, Su Tong took the money back and turned around. Jumped on King K's back. Let's go. Hiss. Now Elder Baiyu is stupid and uncomfortable. Heartbreakingly uncomfortable. Looking at the money I got from these two slaps in my hand, I no longer felt the fragrance anymore. It's like, your sister-in-law suddenly ran to your room and started to take off her clothes. You refused at all, until you saw her slender thighs and perfect curves, and took off her pants. Then your sister-in-law suddenly put on her clothes and left. When he was done, he didn't forget to give you a look of contempt. Brother-in-law, you can't do that. Do you feel uncomfortable or not? Anyway, I feel very uncomfortable. Elder Bayou is in such a mood now, and the duck in his mouth has just flown away. Can he bear it? Etc. He immediately caught up and stopped in front of Su Tong and the others. What, you still want to rob? Su Tong had a pretended surprised look on his face, which made Elder Bayou twitch his mouth, and quickly put on a flattering look. He lowered his eyebrows and said to Su Tong, "This visitor is a guest. This is the first time for you to come here in thousands of years as distinguished guests here. I cannot wait to leave like this, so please come inside and have a glass of the fairy wine brewed by our Kinke clan. This attitude is really comfortable." Gu Zibai couldn't help but joked, "You didn't let us in just now. I woke up early today. My eyes were blurred by shit. I couldn't see the true appearance of the three distinguished guests. I bumped into several distinguished guests. It's really shameful," Elder Bayou said, and hit Kinke where Su Tong and the others were sitting. His eyes said, "Why don't you hurry up and take the distinguished guests to Wutong Terrace?" It was rare for Kinke to see Elder Bayou's defeated appearance today, and he wanted to persist a little longer, but when he saw the murderous look in the elder's smile, Kinke didn't dare to play anymore. After all, he didn't have Su Tong's mental stability, let alone Su Tong's money-making ability. Even if he hurriedly took Su Tong and 3 people to fly into the black nest. This time, Elder Bayou personally flew ahead to lead the way. Some green birds that were flying slower were directly whipped out by Elder Bayou's wings. "Good guy, this old guy is almost becoming your vicious dog," Chang Wahen complained in the team channel, but at the same time he couldn't help but wonder, when did Ming Chao become so valuable? It seems that I will buy some to take with me when I go back. If I encounter such a situation, it may come in handy. What Chang Wahen didn't know was that precisely because of a single thought he made today, he would receive a brutal beating in the near future. Of course, this was all a story later. After passing through the huge tunnel of Wacheo, my eyes suddenly lit up, and a huge mountain came towards me. The mountains towered into the clouds. They stood on Kinke's back and looked down. They could see that the mountains were surrounded by 9 mountains that looked like giant dragons, converging and gathering together. Their posture was majestic and very impressive. Su Tong looked at it with his life Ikemen, and felt that the mountains in front of him hid countless mysteries. Every mountain range seemed to have a real dragon sleeping, and he could not see it clearly with his current ability. At this time, the blue bird began to descend, revealing countless exotic flowers and plants on the ground. "What is that?" At this time, Gu Zibai's eyes saw a piece of golden grassland in the distance. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be an endless rice field, but the rice in it was completely different from the rice he knew. Each of these rice plants is as straight as a sword, and each plant has only one rice kernel. The rice kernels burst from the shell, revealing the crystal clear flesh. Each one is as clear and dazzling as a diamond. That is dragon rice, which is offered to the imperial dragon of the Qing dynasty for food. Kinke opened his mouth to explain, but after saying this, his heart inevitably trembled. Why? It had seen Su Tong's temperament that was so irritating. I prayed secretly in my heart that Su Tong and the other 2 people must not take advantage of Long Dao. Just because he was afraid of what would happen, Su Tong didn't need to say anything. Chang Wogu couldn't help but ask, in other words, this is the food that dragons eat? Dragon still eats this? What does it taste like? It looks delicious. Gu Zibai stared at the dragon rice and couldn't help but start to get greedy. Qingke heard this and secretly complained in his heart, "Come on, if you are targeted by these 3, I am afraid that this year's dragon rice production will not even be able to increase." But Kinke didn't know that Su Tong was eyeing more than just these dragon rice plants. Just wait for Kinke to fly all the way to Wutong Terrace. This is the place where the Kincaid family entertains guests. It is built with the stump of a 10,000-year-old firewood tree. It was as red as jade, and when Su Tong and the other three stepped on it, their whole souls warmed up. It was as comfortable as soaking in a hot spring, making people want to stretch their bodies, lie down here and have a good sleep. Quickly, take out the Shenyi Tianzhan. Elder Baiyu had not even landed on the ground yet he immediately started giving orders. Then he invited Su Tong and the others to sit down, rubbed his wings, and enthusiastically introduced the fairy wine they brewed to the Su Tong trio. This wine is made from the unique fairy fruit of 33 heavens, mixed with the looking heavenly dao. The well water in the well is brewed, and the drinker can eliminate 5 disasters, increase longevity, and gain good fortune. Elder Baiyu boasted about the wine, and at the same time, he quietly looked at Su Tong's face from the corner of his eye, trying to get some clues from the expression of the god of wealth. Unfortunately, Su Tong had the same expression from beginning to end, and even dozed off when faced with Elder Baiyu's bragging. But Su Tong casually picked up a thick stack of money and put it on the table. The thickness was at least a foot thick. The thick stack fell there, which made Elder Baiyu's heart feel like a cat. Like scratching. What made Elder Baiyu even more heartbroken was that Su Tong took out a cigar from the props book, picked up a piece of money, and lit it with a pinch of his fingers, using the money to slowly dry it. Grilled cigars. This scene made Elder Baiyu deeply feel what it means to be rich and wealthy. His poof. As the green smoke lingered, Elder Baiyu couldn't help but narrowed his eyes, obviously not used to the smell of cigars. We came here to look for opportunities. We have limited time. We didn't want to come. Fortunately, we came here because of Kincaid's repeated invitations. Time is limited. Let's keep the story short. Yes, yes, yes. Elder Baiyu felt dizzy for a moment and nodded repeatedly. When Su Tong saw him being so flattering, he immediately felt a bit bored. In fact, he still preferred Elder Baiyu's previous appearance. But now I'm afraid that he won't be able to recover, so he simply doesn't beat around the bush. I have plenty of money. I'll just leave it here and see how you take it. Elder Baiyu looked at the thick stack of money on the table, his eyes almost turned red. After hearing this, he thought for a moment and said, I have a treasure. There are 3 of us, and you have a treasure. Are you fooling the devil? Deduct the money. Before Elder Baiyu could finish speaking, Su Tong reached out and grabbed a handful of money from the table and threw it into the prop book. Don't. When he heard that the money was being deducted, Elder Baiyu jumped up from his chair as if his butt was on fire. The money hasn't been put into his pocket yet, but when he heard the word deduct money, it was as if a large sum of money had really been deducted from him, which made Elder Baiyu feel very distressed. Even though Elder Baiyu has been practicing for thousands of years, compared with Su Tong's skills, they are far behind. No, it should be said that the bargaining skills of this Elder Baiyu are not even 1/10 that of the street ant. After all, this is heaven. For small characters like them, there are not so many intrigues and crooked ways, and there is no need for them to bargain with anyone. It is true that they can do their duty with peace of mind. Therefore, from beginning to end, during the discussion, Su Tong was leading the way. For these ghost notes, Elder Baiyu took out 3 treasures in one breath. One is his treasured Qingluan immortal clothes. After wearing them, he has the ability to become invisible. The other black-green yin-yang hook is a magical weapon left by a senior in the clan. There is another item, Elder Baiyu's valuable treasure in the box, the flowing light shuttle. This treasure is connected with the Yuan Shen and is hidden in the Yuan Shen. After being sacrificed, it can quickly break through the shackles and make the Yuan Shen escape thousands of miles away. It is not dared in heaven, but in the mortal world, I am afraid no one can trap this treasure. The 3 treasures were placed on the table, but Su Tong looked embarrassed. I also have a good brother. This. Elder Baiyu was a little embarrassed, but in the blink of an eye he saw Su Tong's hand going to take the money again. His expression suddenly changed, and he hurriedly said, "Yes, yes, yes, please wait a moment." After saying that, Elder Bayou stood up and left, not knowing what he was going to get. "Boss, this wine is really delicious. I'll bring some later," Gu Zibai said in the team channel. "And that dragon rice, it looks like a treasure at first glance, so I brought it along with me," Chang Wahen reminded him. Su Tong rolled his eyes at these two people and thought that next time he negotiates, it is better not to bring these two people with him and just sit down and eat. After a while, I saw Elder Bayou flying from afar, holding a wooden box. As he flew, he murmured to himself, "Good brother, I'm sorry, I didn't steal your treasure on purpose." He really gave too much. After Elder Bayou said that, he placed the wooden box in front of Su Tong and the others. There were 2 layers of golden yellow talismans affixed to the wooden box, as if they were holding something down. This thing has a great origin. It is the former magic weapon of the general. Scare. Even Su Tong and the other 3 were shocked when they heard this. The general is the ancestor of the zombies, a real ancient god. If this is his weapon, then they will make a lot of money. Immediately afterwards, Elder Bayou took a breath and continued, "It is made from a fragment of." Hearing this, the 3 of them immediately rolled their eyes. "Old guy, don't breathe loudly when you talk. You're going to scare people to death." Gu Zibai patted his chest, glared at Elder Bayou fiercely, and almost shouted the slogan about deducting money for Su Tong. "Hey, this thing is very heavy, and I can't bear the strength." Elder Bayou hurriedly apologized, and then opened the box. Su Tong and the others immediately poked their heads over and took a look. Inside the box was a crimson hidden blade, exuding a dizzying murderous aura. You can tell at a glance that this is a fierce weapon. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 745. Nice one. Su Tong picked up the sleeve blade and examined it carefully. He saw a fierce light on the blade, and the soul-stirring murderous aura lingered on the blade for a long time. It was indeed a fierce weapon. Then, without waiting for Gu Zibai and Chang Wuja to take a second look, they put all these things into the team warehouse. Su Tong is not a stingy person. He teased Elder Bayou before because the old guy looked down on others. But now they have corrected their attitudes and are willing to take out so many treasures. Su Tong generously stretched out his hand to put the thick picked up a stack of money and placed it in Elder Bayou's hand. This made Elder Bayou very excited. Unexpectedly, before Elder Bayou could be happy for a while, Su Tong twitched his hand and divided the thick stack of money into 2, and took back half of it. Just like cutting playing cards, the thickness is instantly reduced by more than half. This. Elder Bayou's eyes suddenly widened when he looked at some Ming Chow that was missing more than half its thickness. However, Su Tong did not immediately put away the other half of the money, but still put it on the table. Elder dissatisfaction, it is not easy for us to come here once. We plan to bring some local specialties back. Our family is poor there. I have never seen it before. Look at such big rice. Elder Bayou's mouth twitched a few times, and he began to quickly calculate in his mind whether he would lose or make a profit on this transaction. This half-thick piece of money was exchanged for 4 of his treasures, which didn't seem to be a good deal. But there is still half of the money on the table. However, just when Elder Bayou started to figure out the flavor, Su Tong had already picked up the other half of the money on the table and put it in his hand. Don't worry, we only need some dragon rice, which is a local specialty. I don't think you will be stingy, after all, we are very sincere. This time, Elder Bayou held Ming Chow tightly, fearing that Su Tong would pull it back again. It was not until Su Tong let go that the entangled feelings in the elder's heart suddenly disappeared. But when it comes to talking about it, Elder Bai, you really can't refuse the dragon rice matter. He thought for a moment. How much do you want? Not many, 1,000. Su Tong Shizi opened his mouth so loudly that Elder Bai Yu's eyes almost popped out. So many? That's dragon rice. It's dedicated to Yulong. There is a fixed number every year, 1,000. It's too much. Then how much can you give? Su Tong frowned and asked. Just 100. If it's more, I won't be able to account for it. Elder Bai Yu said in a deep voice. 300 pills. Is it possible that the price I exchanged for 4 treasures is not enough for 300 dragon rice pills? Elder Bai Yu twitched the corner of his mouth and said to himself, if I knew you would only give half of it, and no one would give you 4 treasures. He was also fooled by lard, and Su Tong led him by the nose, setting the pace along the way without even asking for a price. 200. This is a valuable thing. If there is too much difference, my clan will be punished. Elder Bai Yu gritted his teeth and gave Su Tong a number. Seeing that this old bird could no longer squeeze out any profit, Su Tong could only agree reluctantly, but he also asked him to send a few more jars of wine. After completing the transaction, Elder Bai Yu had completely lost all his original patience with Su Tong and the others. He ordered him to go down and give Su Tong 200 dragon rice grains, add a few jars of wine, and then hurriedly got up and left. We made a profit, boss, we really made a profit this time. Gu Zibai's mouth almost reached the back of his head with laughter. This time it was really worth the money. Earn. Su Tong rolled his eyes at the sky angrily. That's half of my family fortune, enough for Black and White Vuchame to perform a square dance for me. The value of Ming Chao is by no means limited to the merits of the incense on it. It is spiritual money blessed by the Great Seal of Taishan Prefecture, and is an asset recognized by the Bank of Heaven and Earth. I didn't even have time to cover myself up, half of it was gone. Thinking about it, Su Tong didn't think it was profitable either. Before the dragon rice was delivered, Su Tong divided the 4 items into one in the team channel. This hidden blade was too evil and not suitable for them. Besides, they already had a pure yang sword and had no need for it, so they must have given it to Gao Zhou. The black-green yin and yang hooks are a pair of wu hooks, which Gu Zibai knows how to use. Su Tong gave it to him unceremoniously. As for Qingluan immortal clothes, it has the special ability of invisibility, and combined with Chang Wuhen's space ability, it is even more powerful than a tiger. Naturally, it belongs to Chang Wuhen. But things are not given for free. Even if they are a team, they have to settle accounts with brothers. Gu Zibai took Wu Go and consciously handed over 20,000 script points to Su Tong. Gao Zhou took out 10,000 script points and got the least, because he was responsible for guarding the physical body, and he didn't have a share in the previous treasure liquid, so the loss of 10,000 script points was a kind of compensation. Chang Wugu's salary was 30,000. Who asked him to join the team midway? If he had no contribution, he could only pay. After the 4 of them each obtained a treasure, Su Tong threw the light shuttle into the prop book. Streaming light weaving cloud shuttle. Special items, bound to the soul. It is rumored that this object is the divine shuttle that weaves clouds in the hands of Yun-Nu, and has the ability to penetrate the barrier of all things. Active skill 1, Streamer. It consumes 30 script points. After activation, the soul is placed in the streamer cloud weaving shuttle, traveling quickly, extremely fast, and traveling thousands of miles in an instant. Duration, none. It consumes 10 script points every minute. Cooling time, 10 minutes. Active skill 2, Crossing the Boundary. By consuming 300 script points, the soul can penetrate all barrier formations and become invisible, making gods and ghosts unpredictable. Cooling time, 30 minutes. Looking at the information from the flowing light shuttle, Su Tong thought about it and thought it was not bad. After all, the soul has no physical protection, so it would be good to have another way to save his life. Just this time, I saw a group of green birds flying over and dropping crystal clear dragon rice grains from mid-air. It's so big. If you boil this piece into porridge, it will be enough to feed at least 100 people. Gu Zibai looked at the huge rice grains in front of him and opened his mouth wide. Before, they could not see clearly enough in mid-air, but now when the dragon rice was placed in front of them, they realized that these rice grains were so huge. Each one is 3 meters in size, crystal clear, and exudes a unique rice fragrance. If they hadn't seen this with their own eyes, it would be hard to believe that it was actually rice. No wonder it's Yulong's ration. Su Tong threw a dragon rice into the prop book. Dragon rice. Rumor has it that it is a ration prepared for the dragons of the heaven of heaven. Mortals can eat it without eating for 100 days. It nourishes the body and makes them inexhaustible. Note, it is said that those who regularly consume dragon rice can enter a state of cleanliness. Looking at the entries in the props book, Su Tong was already a little greedy. Isn't this the long-term dry food specially prepared for big eaters like them? It's just that the number of these dragon rice is too large, and it's not easy for 3 people to get it in the air. Fortunately, Elder Baiyu was a kind man and gave Su Tong a rice bag. This rice bag was specially designed to hold dragon rice, and it could hold as much dragon rice as he wanted. This had to make Su Tong sigh in his heart. This elder is a very particular person. As everyone knows, Elder Baiyu is not so kind. He is afraid that Su Tong and the others will run out carrying so much dragon rice and be seen by others. If the complaint goes to Shankingtian, he will be punished. With the rice bag, the rest of the things were much easier. After Su Tong put all the dragon rice into the rice bag, he threw it into the prop book, then rode on Kinkei's back and left Xifeng Mountain. In fact, Kinkei originally planned to let Su Tong go to the depths of Xifeng Mountain to have a look. If he was lucky, he might encounter Qingluan. But in this case, I don't know how long it will take to come back and forth. After discussion, the 3 of them decided to go to Kayangtian Yuding first to see what Zhang Haisheng was up to. At the same time, Su Tong did not forget the Tianxing grass that Taoist Lingxiu and the others asked for. So it is inconvenient to stay any longer and it is better to leave early. It was already the 2nd day on Qingchen Mountain, and the solar ring in the sky was getting bigger and bigger, attracting a lot of news reports. On the altar, Taoist Dongxian, dressed in yellow robes, was sitting in the middle. 4 elders from Qingchen Mountain were sitting next to Taoist Dongxian. Each of them held a very strange seal in their hands. They were motionless, as if they had entered samadhi. The sun at noon becomes more and more poisonous, and many tourists are reluctant to get close to the altar for fear of being exposed to the sun. It's strange, it's been a day, why is Dongxian still doing this? In Lejun Pavilion, Taoist Lingxiu looked at the sky outside and felt that something was not quite right. Based on Taoist Dongxuan's physical condition, he should have withdrawn at this time. When Taoist Jing Lingxiu said this, everyone felt that something was wrong. Let's go down and take a look. Master Huigo said and walked downstairs. Seeing this, other Taoist priests also walked downstairs and came to the altar in front of Tianchi Cave. They saw Taoist Dongxian and others sitting on the altar. In the center, one hand is forming a seal, and the other is holding a fly whisk, looking carefully in the sun with a rosy complexion. Seeing this, Taoist Lingxiu looked at each other, and even after careful inspection, he couldn't see anything wrong. At this moment, the Taoist priests around the altar were chanting and singing scriptures, and the ceremony was still going on. They didn't want to step forward to interfere. They were just curious, so they pulled a young Taoist priest who was serving tea aside. Master Dongxian, have you ever, drinking water? The little Taoist priest was startled and stammered, no. No, the master and the four elders have already entered meditation after they went to the altar. We dare not disturb them. Something's wrong. Hearing this, Taoist Lingxiu's expression suddenly changed. Taoism has its own method of fasting, which allows one to go without food for many days, but fasting is not a hunger strike, and one still needs to drink water every day. How could Taoist Dongxuan's physical condition be able to withstand such a hot day? Immediately, Taoist Lingxiu couldn't care about that much. He quickly climbed onto the altar and walked in front of Taoist Dongxian and others, fellow Taoist Dongxian, Taoist Dongxian. After calling twice, and seeing no response, Taoist Lingxiu stretched out two fingers and gently touched Taoist Dongxuan's wrist, and his expression instantly became strange. Immediately he let go of his fingers and checked the pulses of the other four elders. The result made Taoist Lingxiu feel a panic in his heart. After thinking for a moment, he let go of his hand, turned around and walked off the altar. How about it? When a group of Taoists saw him coming down, they hurriedly asked. Taoist Lingxiu looked around and led a group of people back. After avoiding the tourists, he sighed and said, Wu Yang Tianzun, fellow Taoist Dongxian and others have already ascended. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 746. Boss, further up is the jade summit of Kyangtian. In the clouds and mist, King K flew upward with Su Tong and the others. Occasionally, players will be encountered along the way, but after these players saw Su Tong and the others, they immediately chose to avoid them, unwilling to conflict with Su Tong. In response, Gu Zibai couldn't help but sneered, Zhang Haisheng lost both his wife and his troops this time. In the final analysis, players are all looking for their own interests. Once they find that fighting with Su Tong is not cost-effective, they will consider more intuitive benefits, such as the opportunity for treasures all over the world. Even if they only get one, it is better than fighting Su Tong and the other three. After all, life is my own and hatred belongs to others. What does it have to do with me? Don't be too happy. His head is on the shark's list, and sooner or later someone will come to pick it up. I often pour a basin of cold water on the side. Silver teams are rare among players, but even rarer are gold teams, with only 6. Sharks are one of them. As a golden team, they have developed into a huge organizational system, not only penetrating into all walks of life, but even having their own independent assets in high-end exhibition areas. For example, the Shark team is a notorious killer group. Most of the killer missions are issued by them. Once they take on their missions, they will also provide various information as assistance. Just like Su Tong, information about this guy has now been learned by many players. Origin, sect, attack methods he is good at, activity trajectory, and even someone specifically profiled the time when Su Tong became a player. It can be said to be pervasive. Even for a long time in the future, as long as Su Tong appears in reality, there will be a steady stream of information updates. This model is somewhat similar to Meituan. Sharks provide convenience and commissions, and players act as their killers. After the transaction is completed, Shark will take a 20% handling fee from the commission, which can be said to be a huge profit. Sure enough, the behavior of capital is so unified. During this period of time, Chang Liuju has been working under the Shark banner to earn script points. So he knew very well what kind of people in this industry were. Even if the assassination was unsuccessful, Su Tong would have to be careful of the hidden knives that could stab him at any time, whether in the real world or the script world. So besides sharks, are there any more powerful players? Su Tong thought of Deathstroke, who had fought against the 3 of them before. This guy seemed to have extraordinary power over the soul, as well as the big black bell. The 3 of them joined forces and didn't leave each other alone, which showed the others' strength. 6 regiments, 2 gods, and 8 evils. Chang Wehen lay on King K's back, resting his head on his arms, and explained, The 6 teams are easy to understand, they are nothing more than 6 gold level teams, and the 2 gods refer to 2 people. One is a Westerner who calls himself Sun God Anak and is the leader of the Church of Light, one of the 6 groups. It is said that this person is a cardinal in Western reality and has great power. Another Gun God, Caochi, the leader of Gringotts. At least half of the restaurants and tea houses in the high-end exhibition area are owned by Gringotts. You can imagine how huge this team is. The 8 evils are also among these 6 teams, and they are all famous for being top players. Deathstroke is one of the masters who is as famous as the 8 evils. Is this guy also a master? Then I think the 8 evils are not that good either. Gu Zibai couldn't help but joke. But this sentence was severely despised by Chang Wuxiu. That's because we are all in the spirit state, and we are still in the heaven, so we are subject to great restrictions. Otherwise, if Deathstroke returns to his physical body, the 3 of us may not be his opponents. If the human world is like a sea of suffering, this body is a small boat crossing the sea of suffering. Without a physical body, the strength can be reduced by more than half in an instant, and the energy consumption of the soul has to be considered. In this way, Deathstroke can easily escape from the 3 people's joint efforts, which shows how strong he is. Chang Wuzi even had a strong intuition that if Deathstroke fought them regardless, even if they won, it would probably be a lose-lose outcome. Maybe. At this time, Su Tong suddenly spoke, looking at Chang Wuhan, the corners of his mouth cracked to reveal neat white teeth. Strength is not just about having a big fist to win. Chang Wuhan was startled, shocked by Su Tong's inexplicable self-confidence, and couldn't help but feel suspicious. Does he have any other hidden methods? But Su Tong didn't explain, and Chang Wuhan didn't bother to ask him. While he was talking, King K had already rushed into the sea of clouds, and he could see a huge mountaintop in the distance, standing high above the sea of clouds like an Optimus Prime supporting the heaven and earth. The jade top of the sky is the highest peak on the 22nd day. At the end of the mountain, it is divided into 2, one on the left and one on the right. In the middle, there is a huge halo, emitting brilliant rays of light, like the sun, lighting up the whole world. That was the Tianmen, and it was also the entrance when they came in. However, after their souls escaped into the Tianmen, they fell from above and fell all over the heaven. King K flapped his wings vigorously, but he could clearly feel that it was becoming more difficult for him to fly. Finally, when they arrived at the foot of the Qingtian Jade Mountain, King K slowly landed. I can only send the 3 bosses here. I won't be able to fly any higher. This is the highest point King K can reach. In 22 days, apart from a few birds such as cranes, dragon eagles, and so on, the blue sparrow was considered one of the best in arriving here. As for climbing to the top, Su Tong and the others need to walk up the mountain road step by step. Fortunately, the distance was not too far. With Su Tong and his team's strength, they could reach the top of the mountain and reach the Tianmen in almost 2 hours. The Tianxing grass you are looking for is on the mountain wall of Qianhuang Jade Peak. This grass is very special. It has 7 leaves and 3 flowers. If you see it, you will definitely recognize it at a glance. King K pointed to the mountain wall in the distance and reminded Su Tong. Thank you, this is for you. Su Tong took out a piece of money and gave it to King K as a thank you for his service during this period. Hey, if you can come again next time, remember to come to me. I was in a hurry this time. I will take you to see Qingluan next time. King K was embarrassed to accept the money given to him by Su Tong. Although they got along for a short time, when it was time to part, he was still a little sad. Next time, we can meet again if we are destined. Su Tong patted King K's forehead. In fact, he still liked this big bird very much. Unfortunately, he didn't come to a place like heaven just because he wanted to. It only depends on fate. If fate comes in the future, maybe we can meet again. If there is no such fate, This time it will be goodbye forever. Take care, three bosses. After the green bird bid farewell to the three of them slightly, it spread its wings and quickly turned into a blue shadow and disappeared into the clouds. The three of them watched Kincaid leave and started walking along the mountain road. On the way, the three of them saw many wonders that could not exist in reality, and also saw many strange flowers and plants, but they did not encounter Tianxing grass. Enlightenment Cliff. The mountain road turned sharply in front of them, with each step leading to a scene. It was not until a smooth jade-like mountain wall appeared in front of them that the three of them stopped. They saw many players sitting under the mountain wall, staring intently at the stone wall. The three characters Wudao Cliff are written with iron pen and silver hook on the stone wall. Facing the arrival of Su Tong and the others, several people looked at each other and dispersed, obviously unwilling to conflict with Su Tong. Some people sit still and concentrate on observing the mountain wall in front of them. His eyes were hazy, as if he really understood something from it. Can enlightenment be achieved here? Gu Zibai was a little excited. As a martial arts fanatic, he had already learned a set of mysterious boxing techniques by drinking the treasure liquid. Now if he could understand some more things, I believe his strength would skyrocket. Su Tong took out the sheepskin scroll given to him by Taoist Ling Xiu. After opening it, he saw the golden characters flashing on it, revealing a line of small characters. It is said that one day on the Enlightenment Cliff can last as long as 10 years of cultivation on Earth. Although the cliff is light, it contains countless universes. However, if the mind is unstable, there is also the risk of losing the mind and getting lost. The three of them had just finished reading the small print when they suddenly heard a scream. No, no, how could this be possible? I'm obviously right. I saw a player suddenly jump up from the ground, as if he was possessed, and started talking nonsense. Damn it, another one is crazy, come together and kill him. When everyone saw this, they stood up and attacked the man directly. It wasn't that they were cruel, but that someone had suddenly gone crazy before. After injuring several people in a row, the Yuan Shen collapsed in front of everyone and disappeared completely. This is no longer an exception. Counting the one in front of me, this is already the third one. Everyone was seen taking action one after another, but the opponent was obviously not a good person. After going crazy, he used all his methods at once, and for a while, several people joined forces and couldn't defeat him. No wonder they are so afraid when they see someone going crazy. Several people did not dare to use their full strength to each other, for fear that they would use up too much and be stabbed in the back, which would make it impossible to make a difference. Therefore, although they joined forces, they seemed to be inseparable and pulled each other away. Fortunately, after this guy went crazy, the soul could not concentrate at all. After several rounds of battles, the soul turned into a wisp of smoke and completely dissipated. Would any of you want to try it? Su Tong looked at Gu Zibai and Chang Wuhen, and Chang Wuhen curled his lips to show that he was not interested. Enlightenment was too elusive for him. He believes in respecting strength, and besides, he himself is not on the path of spiritual practice, so there is no need to waste time. Gu Zibai hesitated for a while and finally shook his head and gave up. There are many people here and we will protect you. Okay, then I'll give it a try. As Su Tong said that, he strode to the stone wall, sat down cross-legged, and looked at the stone wall. He wanted to see what kind of mystery the stone wall had. However, time passed by, but Su Tong felt nothing. Just when he was confused, he suddenly thought of something. He pinched the sun's seal with his finger and used the Yan technique, searching for souls and bones to suddenly wake up his consciousness. It turned into a big net and blended into the Enlightenment Cliff silently. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 747. Thoughts are like a big net, and the Enlightenment Cliff in front of you is a deep spring. As Su Tong's thoughts merged into it, Countless fragmented textures appeared in front of him. Countless broken textures formed a huge storm in front of Su Tong. Black and red lightning surrounded the storm, making a deafening buzzing sound. Many incomplete magic fragments seemed to be aware of Su Tong's thoughts, and they were spliced together in sequence. For a moment, there were billions of golden rays. This was a fairy light, dazzling, and all kinds of strange ancient magic, like a violent storm, hit Su Tong Lai. Am I so popular? Seeing the overwhelming ancient arts hitting him, Su Tong was not surprised but happy. He formed seals with his fingers and turned his mind into a big hand, grabbing the ancient arts in front of him. All magic techniques in the world come from Yan Shu, and the essence of Yan Shu itself lies in the word duo. He seizes skills from heaven and earth, and competes with all things. Now that I'm here, I don't plan to go back empty-handed. With a big hand, he smashed the ancient technique in front of him into pieces, and then grabbed it in his palm to absorb it into his soul. Su Tong's move immediately seemed to stir up a hornet's nest. Countless ancient arts turned into galloping war horses, galloping from the center of the whirlpool, like a huge ocean wave. Now Su Tong didn't dare to be tough anymore. He made seals with his fingers and drew the thunder talisman. Suddenly, thunder and lightning exploded among the horses. Some horses were unable to dodge and were instantly chopped into countless strange spells. Su Tong took the opportunity to quickly include it in his soul. Just wait for these strange veins to condense again and turn into a talisman. Su Tong tried to call it out, but the talisman also turned into a war horse. Ha ha ha, interesting, so interesting. Immediately he jumped on the horse, looking at the huge storm, and vaguely felt that there seemed to be a more powerful magic in it, drive. The warhorse let out a low neigh, jumped up, and charged into the storm. Look, this guy's spirit is shining. Outside Wudao Cliff, many people cast their gazes at Su Tong, and many of them were planning to take advantage of the opportunity to make a sneak attack. But with Gu Zibai and Chang Wogu acting as guardians, they didn't dare to act rashly. Unexpectedly, after a while, something strange happened to Su Tong. A strange brilliance surrounded Su Tong's soul, flashing continuously. These lights shrouded his soul, exuding a strange power. From time to time, you can even hear the rumble of lightning and thunder. Ah! At this time, several people who were enlightening on the side were awakened one after another. They were lucky. They quickly sensed something in front of the cliff of enlightenment, but before they could comprehend it, they were suddenly interrupted by a force. Because they were forcibly interrupted, some people were not only depressed to death, but also suffered backlash, almost losing their soul. When these people looked at Su Tong and found that Su Tong's soul was flashing with strange light, they couldn't help but wonder if it was this kid's fault. Something's wrong, be careful. Chang Wuja noticed the unkind eyes around him, his heart sank slightly, and he became cautious. Gu Zibai's 5 senses were the strongest. How could he not feel the changes? He immediately stepped forward and stopped in front of Su Tong. A golden light radiated from his body, which was exactly the boxing technique he had learned after drinking the precious liquid. Let's all come together. There are only 2 of them. After passing this village, there is no such shop. Someone shouted, actively stepping forward to cause chaos. Gu Zibai realized the other party's intention, and there was a coldness in his eyes. He raised his hands and punched out at the same time. His angry shouts were still echoing in the air. He ducked down and rushed forward towards the other party. Since the opponent dared to be the first, how could he not have anything to rely on? After images appeared under his feet, and his figure was split into 12 in an instant. Countless leg shadows fell like a rainstorm and collided with Gu Zibai's fists. Bang 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 bang. In just a short moment, the heavy rain-like silhouette of legs and fists collided, making a dull collision sound. The intensity of the opponent's attack was not high, but it was dazzling and extremely fast. Coupled with more and more after images, it was overwhelming. This was a decision made. As long as they persisted for a few seconds, everyone saw that Gu Zibai and the others were unable to defeat 4 punches with both hands. When the time comes, there will naturally be a rush. But he obviously made the wrong idea, as 2 pairs of golden rings appeared in GameElements' white eyes. Treasure skills, martial arts golden eyes. As soon as this technique is activated, confusion is immediately seen through, and the opponent's true form is locked at a glance. Gu Zibai let out a deep shout, his martial arts will penetrated into his fist, and his figure suddenly accelerated, like a lightning flash, ignoring the opponent's after-image attack in an instant, and appeared in front of the opponent's true form. Grabbing the opponent's collar with one hand, he hit the opponent's chest with a flying knee. In an instant, a powerful and arrogant terrifying force exploded, directly beating the opponent's soul and causing his body to retreat involuntarily, but this was not over yet. As Gu Zibai held up his hands, Beihao Xiantao hit the opponent's chin hard. Ah! Without the protection of the physical body, how could the soul withstand such a collision? It was beaten to pieces in just an instant. Who else wants to come? Come along. GameElements, who was as white as a crane, stood on one knee and looked around the crowd, with a sharp look that made everyone shudder. At this moment, the colored light on Su Tong became stronger and stronger. At this moment, his consciousness had rushed into the storm. The warhorse neighed and charged along the direction of the storm. A large number of spell veins were forcibly captured by him. This move undoubtedly further stimulated the fragments in the vortex. They actually combined with each other, transformed into 2 humanoids, and attacked Su Tong. After gathering countless magic fragments, these 2 figures gradually filled up the missing parts and gradually became perfect. With every movement of their hands and feet, they displayed powerful magic. A figure among them raised his hands and formed a strange seal. Behind him was a brilliant golden light, and countless swords, guns, swords, and halberds fell like a heavy rain. Another figure opened its mouth, and there was nothingness in its mouth, swallowing everything, getting bigger and bigger, and swallowed the top of Su Tong's head. Realizing that these 2 guys were scary, Su Tong did not dare to confront them head-on. He galloped his horse while collecting a large number of debris in the storm. Most of these spell fragments were incomplete, and Su Tong needed them together at will to form various weird spells. He used them as cannonballs, regardless of what they were, and just smashed them at the 2 humanoid Dao Wen. Go up. In the sudden time storm, the sound of explosions continued, and large pieces of spell fragments were completely blown to pieces in the roar, and disappeared. Su Tong, on the other hand, rushed all the way to the center of the storm. He had a strong intuition that there must be something big in the center of the storm. Just when his consciousness penetrated the huge dark clouds of the storm, his eyes suddenly lit up. A strange golden talisman was suspended in the middle of the eye of the storm. The talisman resembles a tripod, emitting a blazing light, and before it even gets close, the sound of boundless phoenix chirping can be heard. This is a complete magic talisman, a divine magic that combines tens of millions of magic spells. It's just that this technique is too big, as huge as a mountain. Standing in front of him, he is as pitiful as an ant. This is the real Wei Bao. Su Tong's eyes almost popped out of his head when he saw it. In his own consciousness, it was probably impossible to completely take away this technique, and it was even difficult to pry it off at all. Just as Su Tong was scratching his head, the 2 figures chasing him had already attacked. 2 figures, 4 hands joined together, one is Yang, the other is Yin. The combination of Yin and Yang hatches a Tai Chi diagram in their palms. Then the time around them seems to have stopped, and the void has also solidified, with a ray of dim light from the beginning. Like a comet falling, shining out from the Tai Chi diagram. Su Tong suddenly felt something bad in his heart, and decisively abandoned his horse and jumped up. Then the warhorse transformed by the magic technique quietly disappeared under the light of the Tai Chi diagram. No, it should be wiped out, completely erased from the world, and no longer exists. Even if Su Tong's consciousness returns to his soul at this moment, this technique will no longer exist. Seeing this scene, Su Tong felt a chill in his heart. This power was too terrifying. If his consciousness was hit, his soul would disappear and be completely wiped out. Seeing that the attack missed, the two figures turned around and pointed at Su Tong. Seeing this, Su Tong's face changed slightly. He looked sideways at the huge talisman behind him, and his heart moved, this way. After saying that, he flew towards the talisman in front of him. Those two figures didn't care about anything, they just wanted to wipe out this unruly guy. A gray beam of light shot out from the Tai Chi mirror and swept after Su Tong. Su Tong hurriedly ducked sideways, but the beam hit the talisman behind Su Tong impartially. The rune made a harsh crackling sound, and a large piece of broken golden rune fell. It's about the size of a rockery, but for the talisman in general, it's just a drop in the bucket. Seeing this, Su Tong hurriedly threw himself on it. Before he could be happy, he suddenly became alert and saw the talisman behind him trembling slightly. Then there was an ear-splitting roar, and a brilliant golden light surged out from the talisman, overwhelming the sea. The momentum swept across all directions. Su Tong saw that he couldn't avoid it, so he simply blocked the shining golden talisman fragments in front of him. Perhaps because of the same origin, the golden light shining on it was like mud entering the sea and dissipating into the invisible. Su Tong was naturally safe and sound while hiding behind it. But the two figures transformed by tens of millions of spells were miserable. They were instantly crushed mercilessly in the tide of golden light. They exploded completely with a boom and returned into countless fragmented spells, and were involved in the storm. Hey, big brothers, thank you very much. Su Tong poked his head out to take a look, grinned with bared teeth, and then with a thought in his mind, he used the Yan technique he had understood in the third path, Tai Shang Furnace. Consciousness turned into a furnace and forcibly contained this huge piece of talisman fragments. Refining. I saw the golden fragments gradually dissolving in the furnace, turning into a strange golden talisman. Compared with the talisman behind him, this talisman has only a few similarities. Before Su Tong could take a closer look, the talisman behind him in the eye of the storm began to tremble, as if he had discovered that a mouse had stolen him. Part of it, even if it is only the size of a fingernail. Seeing this, Su Tong didn't dare to stay any longer, and hurriedly gathered his consciousness. After his consciousness returned to his soul, he saw the Wudao cliff in front of him making a roaring sound, and a dazzling golden light burst out from the cyan cliff, making everyone open their eyes. Don't open your eyes. After the golden light dissipated, everyone took another look and found that the huge Wudao cliff had mysteriously disappeared from in front of them. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shuigan Xiao. Chapter 748. Wudao cliff has disappeared. Now everyone was dumbfounded. After seeing Gu Zibai's strength, many people were unwilling to have another conflict. They just wanted to wait for Su Tong's enlightenment to be over before continuing on their own. Unexpectedly, after Su Tong, Wudao cliff disappeared. I don't know how many people felt regretful at this moment, and the eyes they looked at Su Tong became even more unkind. However, Su Tong could not care about their feelings. The fact that these people came to participate in Luo Tianda dipping was a kind of malice to him, even if the other party's original intention was not to be an enemy of him. But that also depends on the situation. If Gu Zibai and Chang Wuhan weren't protecting them, they wouldn't be able to take advantage. They might have pounced on them earlier and cut them into pieces. How's it going? What's the gain? Chang Wuhan stood beside Su Tong and asked in a low voice. Good. Su Tong nodded. Although he got a piece of the talisman, he still didn't know what the function of the talisman was. You still need to find a target to test it out. Thinking of this, Su Tong looked around to see if there was that brave bird who jumped out and let him do the experiment. As a result, everyone also noticed Su Tong's unkind eyes, and immediately turned around and left. The enlightenment cliff was gone. They didn't want to fight Su Tong and be taken advantage of by others. How long would it be before they left now? Seeing everyone leaving, Su Tong felt disappointed for a while and could only look at his good brother Chang Wuju. It's a pity that Chang Wuhan and Su Tong grew up together. As soon as they saw Su Tong's familiar eyes drifting towards them, they immediately thought of that familiar scene. No worries, I'm playing a doctor now. Suddenly the corner of his mouth twitched and he roared, "Get out of here! If you dare to take my idea, I will fight you to the death." Seeing that Chang Wuhan looked like an angry little turkey, Su Tong had no choice but to give up his thoughts. Let's go and see this little cutie Zhang Haisheng. I guess this kid is impatient. Su Tong raised his head and looked at the top of Qingtianjade. He believed that Zhang Haisheng must be waiting for him there. Aren't you afraid that this guy will prepare a hangmen banquet for you up there? Gu Zibai asked. In fact, Gu Zibai does not recommend that Su Tong climb to the top now. Zhang Haishen's Tianchi cave inheritance is on the jade summit of Kyangtian. He must have come straight to this place early. He is afraid that he has set up a killing situation there. Waiting for Su Tong. The best way is to wait until the time is almost up, and then forcefully break out of the Tianmen. By then, the soul will return to its place. In reality, under the eyes of everyone, Zhang Haisheng can't do anything to him. However, in response to Gu Zibai's proposal, both Su Tong and Chang Wuju smiled. What are you laughing at? Gu Zibai suddenly became annoyed when he saw that the two of them were laughing instead of saying anything. But Chang Wuju patted his teammate on the shoulder. I'm afraid he won't come. Those who know me are free. Su Tong pointed at Chang Wuju with a smile. Then his expression straightened. I'm here just to beat him. I'll be uneasy if he doesn't die. With that said, Su Tong strode straight to the top of the mountain. The three of them walked quickly along the bluestone steps. They occasionally encountered some temples and Taoist temples on the way, but most of these buildings were dilapidated and no one lived here. I don't know which god's abandoned former residence it is. The places that could be searched inside had probably been searched by others a long time ago, and Su Tong and the others were too lazy to waste any more energy. To Su Tong's helplessness, the three of them tried their best to take more remote routes along the way. As a result, they didn't see Tianxing grass all the way. This inevitably made Su Tong feel a little guilty. The three old Taoists, Lingxiu, were pretty good to him. They never took on the airs of their seniors and were willing to communicate with his peers. They even spoke uprightly about matters in Miai's Huang. He even gave himself the map and asked him to go to Yugzuda and get the opportunity for his enlightenment. He thought that he could pick some Tianxing grass and take it back, which was considered as fulfilling his promise. Unexpectedly, after walking for so long, I didn't see a single one. Maybe after I go back, I can buy it from other people. Gu Zibai suggested. Just because they didn't encounter it doesn't mean they didn't, and maybe someone who walked in front took it away first. Furthermore, Taoist Lingxiu himself also said that they do not insist on this matter. If they can meet the best, it is their destiny to not meet them. Perhaps because time was already very tight, more and more players appeared on Kyangtian Jade Peak. Because there was only one way up the mountain, Su Tong would inevitably meet these players. But everyone was very restrained. A player stepped forward and said to Su Tong, "We have no ill intentions, but the opportunity of Luo Tianda is too rare, so we came back to participate. As for the feud between you and Zhang Haisheng, we will never get involved." Yes, everyone has no grievances, and this is not a script world. Why waste script points here? It's true that you get the baby and go home to sleep. Another player spoke up. After all, people are selfish, and no one is willing to give selflessly to others. Zhang Haishan's move seemed like he was going to cause trouble for Su Tong, but it was actually a bad chess piece. Many people even think that this guy is too self-righteous. Do you really think that just an announcement can get other players to work for him? How ridiculous. After these players expressed their opinions again and again, the atmosphere became less tense than before. Some people even actively wanted to join Su Tong's team, but Su Tong refused. A silver-level team can be set up with 7 core members and 4 peripheral members. The upper limit of temporary members is about 10 people. If expansion is enabled, an enhanced team can be expanded. However, Su Tong is not considering further expansion for the time being. On the one hand, he is not good at team management. On the other hand, there are many people and many things to do, and it is not as pure and simple as it is now. Of course, that's what people said. If you join in the fun and make noise, you can't rule out that you really want to join the team, but I don't know how sincere it is. So no one took this matter seriously, but it could be regarded as a statement. Su Tong took this opportunity to say that he needed Tianxinko and was willing to buy it at a high price. But it's a pity. I don't know if it's because of Taoist Linkshu and the others. After asking around, I was surprised that no one has this thing in their hands. Hey, why are there so many people in front? Before they reached Yuding, the people in front gradually began to slow down. Su Tong and the others took a closer look and found that in front of them, many players were gathered on the terrace halfway up the mountain. Here was an abandoned palace. Not even the walls were left in the palace, only a few huge stone pillars were left, telling the story of the past. Of brilliance. But at the end of the palace, I saw a young man sitting on a white jade dragon chair, holding his chin and waiting for everyone. No, it should be said, he was waiting for Su Tong's arrival. If this wasn't Zhang Haisheng, who could it be? Woolen cloth. He's really here waiting for you. Chang Wuzi looked up and down Zhang Haishan's body. Even in his soul state, he could still feel the vigorous and deep aura of Zhang Haisheng. Sensing Su Tong's arrival, many people looked at Su Tong. His eyes sparkled with anticipation. Especially those who have fought against Su Tong are looking forward to it. For example, Deathstroke hiding in the crowd can't help but lick the corners of his lips, impatiently waiting for the battle to come. Whether it is Zhang Haishan's victory or Su Tong's victory, it is a good opportunity for him to fish in troubled waters. If Su Tong loses to Zhang Haisheng, he doesn't mind and uses his own death knell to send this boy off for the last time. I believe Deathstroke is not the only one who has this idea, otherwise why would there be so many people guarding here? You came. Seeing Su Tong walking slowly, Zhang Haisheng opened his eyelids and looked Su Tong up and down. He immediately stood up from his seat, but did not speak to Su Tong. Instead, he looked around at everyone present. This time I issued a call and everyone responded, but no one took action. In this case, please hand over the immortal treasures you obtained and leave. You are not welcome in Qingcheng Mountain. As soon as these words came out, everyone present was stunned. According to the old script, shouldn't Zhang Haisheng and Su Tongbiao talk trash first and then fight to the death? Why is there still something going on with them? Are you out of your mind? You want us to hand over the fairy treasure? I think you are sick, someone couldn't help but complain. They came here just for the treasures from the heaven, and just to watch the fun, who promised to fight Su Tong to the death. If we don't interact with each other, will you kill us too? Someone crossed his arms and sneered. Fighting alone, they may not be Zhang Haishan's opponent, but with so many players, if they attack together, even if Zhang Haisheng is powerful, the consumption of his soul is enough to make him lose his soul. I've been waiting for a long time for this to happen. It's really disappointing. If I don't watch it anymore, I'm leaving. Let's see what you can do to me. Some people said that they were ready to leave, but in fact they had some bad premonitions in their hearts and wanted to take the opportunity to leave quickly. However, just as the man was about to leave, he looked up and saw an old Taoist priest standing on the road. The old Taoist priest was holding a white sail and making sutras with one hand. He stood on the road leading to Yuding and looked at Su with a smile. "Tong, we've already come, so why rush to leave?" "Huh." Su Tong looked at the old Taoist who quietly appeared in front of him, and he couldn't help being surprised. "It's you." Su Tong did not know the Taoist name of the Taoist in front of him, but he knew that this man was one of the elders of Qingcheng Mountain. On the way up the mountain, he deliberately sang pornographic songs to stimulate him. This person is not even a Grand Master, how come he is here? "Infinite Heavenly Lord, Su Tong, you cut off my Qingcheng Mountain's spiritual roots and burned my Qingcheng Mountain's luck for thousands of years. It's time to settle this account with you today." An old Taoist walked out from the side. He was also one of the elders of Qingcheng Mountain. Now everyone was a little surprised. When did these veterans come in and how did they come in? "It's up to you." Su Tong frowned slightly. Others didn't know about these veterans, but Su Tong knew it. Although he didn't know how they got in, the strength of these veterans was not even as good as ordinary players, so what if they came in? As soon as he finished speaking, there was a burst of laughter from behind the chair behind Zhang Haisheng. Taoist Dongxian, who was dressed in yellow robes, held a fly whisk and wore a mitre on his head. He walked out with a rosy face and looked at Su Tong sideways. "Since you have inherited the inheritance of Mi's Huang, do you know that I, Qingcheng Mountain, Lianji Machin Array?" Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 749. Lianji Dust Formation. Su Tong scratched his head. He had never heard of this name before. He just sneered and said, "What, you master and disciple still want to fight in a group? Ignorant child." Taoist Dongxian curled his lips and cursed secretly. His Tianqi cave has a long tradition, with Laozi as the founder, and it is the dojo taught by Zhang Daoling himself. It is said that it has the same origin as Longhu Mountain. The Lianji dust formation created by the seniors in the sect was suppressed by their Tianqi cave formation of luck. "Su family's son, you are lucky to die under this formation." After Taoist Dongxian finished speaking, he took out a dilapidated old talisman from his sleeve. I don't know what era this talisman was from, and there were even a few moth-eaten holes on it. Taoist Dongxian took out this talisman, and his heart was filled with murderous intent. After enduring for a long time, he even swallowed the poison. With the power of the medicine, Yuan Shen escaped into Tianmen just to kill Su Tong, the scourge. I saw the talisman opened, and it was a bright light. At the same time, the other four elders chanted incantations at the same time and formed a seal with their hands. The disillusionment of life and death, the innate qi, set up the formation. Rumble, rumble. As soon as the thought arose, Taoist Dongxian and the others were invisible, and there was a burst of lightning and thunder around them, as if they were falling into hell. "No, leave quickly." Sensing the danger, Deathstroke and his group stood up to escape. But it's too late. Zhang Haisheng has been here for so long, and the formation has been arranged long ago. As Taoist Dongxian began to sacrifice the talisman at this moment, the surrounding void was instantly blocked by a strange force. A Tai Chi diagram was manifested in the talisman, one yin and one yang, expelling a hazy aura that was about to cover the huge jade roof of the sky. This formation has 6 gates: life, death, obscurity, brightness, illusion, destruction, and destruction. It receives the 2 innate qi of yin and yang and evolves the power of the 5 elements. A wrong step will turn it into pure energy, and both body and soul will be destroyed. For a time, the space in front of everyone began to become dislocated. Everyone stood in a different position, and the world they saw in front of them also changed dramatically. Some people saw a desert, while others saw a vast ocean. Even when the two of them were standing together, the scenes they saw were completely different. The world was spinning and everything in front of them was upside down. Seeing themselves trapped in a killing array, everyone panicked instantly. They were here just to watch a fight between dragons and tigers, but they had no intention of involving themselves in it. Immediately, someone relied on their speed, and their figure turned into a dark blue stream of light, like a comet rushing into the sky. As a result, the stream of light flashed, but it was frozen in the void by a strange force. Then, under the gaze of everyone, the soul was turned into ashes, and there was no time to scream. Such a terrible scene made everyone feel chilled. Boom! 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 At this time, the sound of bells sounded like a tide, and the death knell relied on its copper bell body to stir up ripples in the void. His soul transformed into a monster with the head of a lion and the body of a dragon, which merged with the bronze bell and emitted a terrifying sound. The few people closest to him were instantly unlucky. They were either blown away or knocked out of their wits by the terrifying sound waves on the spot. The death knell couldn't control them that much. The soul was entrusted in the copper bell and soared into the sky quickly, trying to forcefully break through the formation. As a result, as soon as it took off, the yin and yang in the void were seen rotating. The huge Tai Chi diagram suppressed it, absorbing all the bells. At the same time, an unmatched force hit the bronze bell. Boom! A dull sonic boom exploded, and the copper bell was smashed back to the ground like a cannonball. Deathstroke's own spirit had to be transformed into a human form again, and he kept taking out drugs and drinking heavily to barely keep his spirit from being shaken away. Seeing this scene, everyone's hearts went cold. Even the death knell, one of the three heroes, couldn't rush out. Didn't they have even more hope? GameElements' white eyes flashed with golden rings, trying to use the golden eyes of martial arts to see the way out, but she didn't know what to do. She was shocked when she saw that the space in front of her was already twisted layer by layer, and there was no way for people to escape. Chang Wogu wanted to activate his prop card and use the power of space to forcefully tear the void and rush out, but the prop book issued a warning. You are in a special space and cannot use this ability. I can't get out. Looking at the surroundings for an instant, they were already swallowed up by the invisible force field. Chang Wuzu looked ugly. Su Tong's heart moved and he whispered in the team channel, "That's not necessarily the case. Cover me." As he spoke, Su Tong took 2 steps back and hid behind the two of them. He first took out a paper man from the props book, then wiped it on the face of the paper man, and molded the paper man's appearance into his own, and then his mind with a movement, he quietly called out the cloud-weaving light shuttle. The shuttle flew quietly above Su Tong's head. After Su Tong activated his skill to cross the boundary, it turned into a black light, wrapped Su Tong's soul and plunged into the void, disappearing silently without a trace. Active Skill 2, Crossing the Boundary. By consuming 300 script points, the soul can penetrate all barrier formations and become invisible, making gods and ghosts unpredictable. With a flash in front of his eyes, Su Tong suddenly felt his body light up and saw that he had already shuttled out of the formation. Looking back, he saw that the huge golden dome in front of him was already shrouded in an aura visible to the naked eye. It is indeed a good treasure, but it is a pity that it has been bound to my soul. Otherwise, I could use the team warehouse and lend it to Gu Zibai and Chang Wogu to save them too. Then Su Tong glanced sideways and saw Taoist Dongxian and others not far away sitting on a high platform, making secrets with their hands, as if maintaining the formation. Seeing this, Su Tong's eyes darkened slightly, and he moved toward Taoist Dongxian and others calmly. At this moment, in the formation, no one noticed that Su Tong had disappeared, or they had no time to pay attention to Su Tong. When they found that they could not get out, everyone would start to panic. Zhang Haisheng, we have no enmity or grudge against you, please let us go. Seeing that they could no longer rush out despite trying to force it out, someone asked Zhang Haisheng to let them go. As a result, Zhang Haisheng raised his brows slightly, and there was a cold light in his eyes. I gave you the opportunity just now, but you don't cherish it? Now that you have entered the formation, just stay here. I will take good care of your unconscious body. Zhang Haisheng finally showed his fangs at this moment. 22 days is so big. It is not an exaggeration to say that it is vast. There are too many opportunities in it. Immortal treasures. I am alone. I must harvest the inheritance as soon as possible and guard against Su Tong. It is really powerless. Since one person was not enough, it would be better to bring in more people, so Su Tong was used as a target to publish news and promote Luo Tianda. It would be best if these people could fight against Su Tong. If they couldn't, he wouldn't force it. He just needed to sit at the exit of Tianmen and wait quietly. After these people's souls here disappear and their bodies lose consciousness, he will slowly clean up the mess. All the fairy treasures and prop cards are his. So instead of saying that Zhang Haisheng was thinking of ways to kill Su Tong, it would be better to say that from the beginning, he wanted to kill more than just Su Tong. He was ruthless and outrageous. You're not even afraid of being stretched to death. Zhang Haisheng, you are so cruel. You are blind to us, but if you do this, it will definitely arouse the public outrage of the players. Aren't you afraid that Qingcheng Mountain will never have a peaceful life again? Everyone cursed one after another, and they narrowed their eyes because of the smoke screen thrown by Zhang Haisheng. Who would have thought that this guy would be so bold, but these curses did not hurt Zhang Haisheng. If you can kill someone, how can you look forward and backward? As for what happened afterwards, that was what happened afterwards. At worst, I would let the news out, saying that they were all killed by Su Tong, and that Su Tong's soul had been killed by me. As for the physical body, just let it go and let others snatch it. I believe that the time prop card in Su Tong's hand is enough to attract most people's attention. Zhang Haisheng ignored the angry looks of everyone and looked at Su Tong, who was hiding behind Gu Zibai and Chang Wogu from a distance. He wanted to say something, but he opened his mouth and hesitated. Waving his hand, everyone, farewell. As he spoke, Zhang Haisheng took a step back, and his figure suddenly disappeared in front of everyone. Zhang Haisheng was about to leave at this moment, because he didn't need to take action at all, as his master and uncles had already paved the way for him. Lianji dust formation, no matter how powerful they are, they can't even think of leaving. They just have to wait for the gate of heaven to close. If they don't return over time, they will be punished by heaven and their souls will be scattered. Zhang Haisheng emerged from the formation, turned around, and looked at Taoist Dongxian and others sitting on the high platform. There was a sad look in his eyes. This was a farewell, which made the bridge of his nose sore. Master! He called softly. Taoist Dongxian opened his eyelids slightly and shook his head towards Zhang Haisheng. Let's go quickly, the gate of heaven is about to close. Taoist Dongxian glanced at the sun in the distance. When the sun sets, it is the time when the Tianmen closes. Just waiting for the gate of heaven to close, they will also be wiped out, but what if they can see what the heaven looks like before they die, and they can give their disciples a last helping hand, and their souls are gone? Master! Zhang Haishen's nose was sore. Facing his relatives, he still felt shaken in his heart. Maybe there is another way. Master, uncle, come back with me. I will make a golden body for you. Maybe. Zhang Haisheng. Dongxian Taoist suddenly opened his eyes and interrupted Zhang Haisheng. If you want to become a great businessman, the most important thing is to avoid being indecisive. What are you talking nonsense about? Why don't you get out of here? The other four old Taoists opened their eyes one after another. Hai Sheng, If you hear the Tao in the morning, you will die in the evening. I will be satisfied if I can come to the heaven once. Your journey has just begun. It's your fault that we old guys don't have the ability to help you, that's all. Let's go quickly. After this battle, Qingcheng Mountain will be entrusted to you. We will take over the dirty work and cause and effect. After you go back, this matter will stop here. Don't disturb your Taoist mind. If one day you have to ascend in the daytime, then set up a monument for us here, an old Taoist said softly. Zhang Haisheng took a deep breath, knowing that the matter had reached an irreversible point. He knelt on the ground and gave 3 loud bangs to the master and uncles in front of him. The unfilial Zhang Haisheng kowtows to his master and uncle. There were no tears in the soul, but one could hear Zhang Haishen's reluctance to vomit blood in his heart. Get out of here! Get out of here! Taoist Dong Xian looked at Zhang Haisheng, who was kneeling on the ground, and urged him with an expressionless face. But there was also a deep feeling of reluctance in his heart. He had raised this child with his own hands, and it was not an exaggeration to say that he had the same affection as father and son. It's a pity that I can't see the day when this child becomes Optimus Prime. Zhang Haisheng kowtowed again, and finally stood up slowly under the urging of Taoist Dong Xian. Like a child who was pushed out of the house, he looked back at Taoist Dong Xian and others with 2 steps, got up and walked to the jade top. Seeing Zhang Haisheng leaving, an elder sighed and said, "Hey, senior brother, you are leaving. Why do you have to be shameless all the time? You have been singing Red Face all your life and you haven't had enough." After hearing this, Taoist Dong Xian felt a little regretful. But he still said forcefully, "This kid is good at everything. The biggest problem is that he can't be cruel when things are about to happen. If he could kill him in Miai's Huang, even if our blood was splashed 3 feet on the spot, he would still be smiling." The 4 old Taoists did not deny it after hearing this. Although their lives are important, the foundation of Qingcheng Mountain is worth 10 times 100 times more than their lives. If Zhang Haisheng had been able to disregard their lives and give it a go, he would have shot that kid to death in Miai's Huang. As for the Mei family, Taoist Links Yu and others, it would be best if they died on the spot. Even if they were lucky enough to escape, they would not dare to be enemies with Zhang Haisheng, an enlightened heavenly man, and they would just shut up in the end. It was a pity that Zhang Haisheng was concerned about their lives at that time and chose to endure it. For this reason, Dong Xian Taoist reprimanded the child many times afterwards, and he must be punished continuously. Even if he was 1/10 as decisive as Shuigui back then, there was no need for old guys like them to show off their old faces and use such disgraceful methods to deal with Su Tong and others. "Senior brother, you have a sharp mouth and a soft heart." An old Taoist sighed, making Taoist Dong Xian smile bitterly. "Aren't all parents like this?" As soon as he finished speaking, Taoist Dong Xian closed his eyes, and the scene of him carrying Haisheng up Qingcheng Mountain step by step flashed before his eyes. Waves of singing echoed in Taoist Dongsuan's thoughts. "You are always too soft-hearted and bear all the problems on your own." Listening to the singing, Dong Xian Taoist felt sad in his heart, and couldn't help but take a deep breath. "Junior brother, stop singing." "I didn't sing," an old Taoist raised his head with doubts on his face. "I thought it was you who sang." Taoist Dong Xian was startled when he heard this, and then he opened his eyes suddenly and saw someone standing beside him. He was wearing a bright red paper mask. "Who are you?" Taoist Dong Xian was startled. He saw the figure of the visitor step back and wave his left hand. The red leather mask on his face actually changed its appearance like a face in a Sichuan opera. He pinched his fingers and his singing voice changed. "Red-faced Guangong, white-faced Cao, green-faced Chen Yajin, ah, ah." The drawl got louder and louder. Taoist Dongsuan's eyes widened for a moment, dumbfounded by the scene. Just when he was at a loss, he saw the other party suddenly raised his fist and hit Taoist Dongsuan's face, and sang, "Hammer your mother." "Sorry, I originally finished 2 chapters, but after reading it, I felt that it was not well written, so I deleted more than half of it and wrote it again. I have only written this chapter now. I will continue writing at night.